People are arguing about whether this truce/ceasefire, temporary ceasefire, will hold. Obviously, everybody wants those hostages home. A story on the front of the Sun in the United Kingdom this morning, headline, "They stole her voice." The story of Emily Han, the 9-year-old who was held for nigh on 7.5 weeks. And her father says this morning in the paper that she barely can speak. She's whispering. What do we know about the conditions that the hostages experienced and the impact that that has had from your point of view, my friend?
We're beginning to hear some of the stories, and I'm actually surprised that we're already hearing it, because those people have undergone tremendous psychological trauma, and I actually expected them to be maybe kept more safe and not be able to speak to the media. But I guess that there is a strategy behind this. People in the world need to know what's happening to the hostages. So we heard from a 12-year-old boy. His aunt spoke to French TV, and she told what had happened to him. First of all, he was threatened with a rifle every time he was crying. He was forced to watch the atrocities committed on October 7th on a screen of some sort. They showed the video to him. And his grandmother also said that he was basically kept isolated. He was in a room by himself for 16 days, only given water and food every now and then. So he's, of course, tremendously damaged. That's just one story. Then we have Emily, the 9-year-old girl who's whispering. And I suspect, unfortunately, that we're going to hear many, many more gruesome stories, in particular about the women, the young women, because we know that Hamas raped, I don't know how many, but they raped many people on October 7th. And there is a huge fear in Israel that this is also happening while they're being kept hostage. Again, we don't know, stressing that, but there's a huge fear given on what happened on October 7th.
Yeah, Jotham, there's so much focus on the women and the children. We've just heard about Emily's story. This 10-month-old baby, there's quite a lot of confusion as to why that wouldn't be one of the immediate people released. What do you know about the status? Because there's lots of confusion about what might be happening in that case.
We have to assume that Israel has some sort of intelligence that he is alive. If he's not alive, I suspect that this whole ceasefire would have fallen apart, because at 10 months, he's become, like you said, he's become the symbol of the hostages. He's by far the youngest hostage kept in Gaza. And if he was killed, I don't see how Israel could have continued to negotiate with Hamas. But if he's alive, that just goes to show that Hamas is using him cynically as some bargaining chip, because he could have easily been on one of the first lists, we should assume. Now, Hamas is apparently saying that they don't have him anymore. It's another terror group. But those terror groups are still talking. We know that. Yesterday, we saw Islamic Jihad and Hamas terrorists together in this parade where they released the hostages. So he is cynically being used as a psychological warfare, really, by Hamas and Islamic Jihad and other terror groups. So we expect him to be released in the coming days. But again, we have no idea. And the family is literally losing their minds. They can't take it anymore, because they're just waiting and waiting, and they're not receiving any good news about him.
I don't think anybody can even begin to imagine what that must be like, waiting for a loved one, a child, a wife, a husband to come back. One of the other things that we've talked about is that aid has been finally able to get into Gaza over the last 5 or 6 days. Is that part of the process? We're talking about prisoners in sort of like they're pawns in a game, but obviously that is important as well for the Palestinians and the people in Gaza. But there are cynics, I guess, all over the place. Some people are saying, why would you negotiate with terrorists anyway? But the hostages have to be the most important thing, Jotham, right?
Absolutely. Obviously, there are also 1.7 million civilians, roughly, who are in dire need of aid, and they are receiving 200 trucks with aid every single day. It's all kinds of medical help, it's food, it's water, and of course fuel, which is essential for Gaza to keep functioning somehow. So fuel is also entering, and every day that Hamas and Israel can continue to extend this ceasefire, it will literally save lives inside Gaza. It will save Palestinian civilians' lives, because they are in dire need of all of this. And of course, there are also the Palestinian prisoners kept in Israeli jails, which I would say is maybe not such a big priority if you look at who needs help the most. It's the hostages and it's the Palestinian civilians inside Gaza. Now, many of those Palestinian prisoners are in jail for a reason. They've committed attempted manslaughter.
I make that point because I've read and heard lots this week. You know, you get 3 prisoners for a hostage. There surely is a difference, is there not, between a hostage, be it a child, a woman or a man, taken from their bed on October the 7th as a hostage and somebody who's in prison for a crime. There's a massive difference, Jotham.
It's an appalling comparison, and that's not to downplay that Israel has been known to treat Palestinian prisoners horrendously in some cases. Administrative detention is highly controversial by human rights organizations. We've also heard human rights organizations reporting on alleged torture against minors in jails. But roughly, if you look at those in jail now, many of them are, first of all, adults. Many of them are members of Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Some of them have attempted to commit manslaughter. And yes, there are younger boys who have thrown rocks at policemen and security personnel. But again, the difference between that and a 10-month-old baby, if you make that moral equivalence, I don't even know what to say, to be honest.